I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's episode, entitled Horror Anthology 401. The Grindhouse Institute can't let Shocktoberfest end without a dive into horror anthology. This is our fourth episode on this topic, so shove a freshman in a locker, chug a beer in the parking lot, and get ready for our senior year of short but sweet horror films. And since we're doing anthology, it is, of course, time to welcome back an old friend to introduce these films.
Hello, kiddies. It's me again, the Ghoul of the Grindhouse, awakening from my year-long slumber to bring you a delectable deluge of sinful cinema. 5 clods crammed in a creepy caboose come into contact with a quack clairvoyant and his cryptic cards. As the train tears down the tracks, each one is presented with a petrifying prediction of a fatal future. Is this the end of the line? Or is this just a fraudster fortune teller who puts the loco in locomotion? Bleeder Cushing, Abistopher Lee, and Donald Smotherland star in Fred Dye Francis's Dr. Terror's House of Horrors from 1965. A cretinous college kid, a scheming set of sniping sisters, and a figurine fetish with the formation of ferocious fangs all wage war over one woman. Based on books by Richard Matheson, adapted to the small screen by Killian F. Nolan, and directed by Dan Spertus. This is 1975's Trilogy of Terror, starring Scarron Black. A herd of horrific hoodlums determined to document their dreadful deeds are contracted to commandeer a creepy cassette from a creaky old cottage, complete with a couched corpse and a hill of horrific home movies. Each of the ethereal episodes presents a pre-recorded parable of vicious violence and scintillating splatter. Kelvin Lee Reader, Hannah Fearman, and Lane Booz are just a few fearful folks directed by a killer cornucopia of modern masters of the macabre in VHS from 2012. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
Joey? You're all gonna fucking die up here.
What?
Oh, did that bother you?
What's the matter, Doc?
You still a virgin? Or, is it that you just don't like girls?
Don't be so gullible. Can't you see it's all part of the act?
What act, Mr. Marsh? Is your name Marsh?
There's no mystery about it, gentlemen. Most informed people have heard of Franklin Marsh, art critic. Confidence tricksters make a point of being familiar with people in the news.
Well, I've never heard of you.
Just touching on Freddie Francis real quick. He was a DP for a long time, jumped in, was doing some directing, and kind of went back and forth. Like, unlike maybe like someone like Barry Sonnenfeld or...
Went right to directing and never came back.
Yeah, it's like, Freddie Francis didn't win an Academy Award for cinematography until 1989. He shot Glory.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and he shot Cape Fear and
nice.
David Lynch movie called Straight Story.
I've never seen Straight Story.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I was aware of it. He also shot The Elephant Man. And
there you go. Yeah.
One that we did on this show, The Innocents.
Oh yeah, I knew that one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that was
what a gorgeous film that was. Holy cow!
The look of that one was incredible. Exactly.
Schreck is a German word, isn't it? It means fright, fear, something like that. The more exact translation would be terror. An unfortunate misnomer, for I am the mildest of men. However, I sometimes foretell things that are frightening.
All right, welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me, as always, is Jeremy Floyd. Hello, and how are you?
I like you. I guess I don't have any other lines except for...
Yeah, Jeremy, that's the only line that he's got in this one. And if you had seen all three of these movies, you might know that this came from VHS, one of them. I actually knew that one this time.
Yes.
We are back, and we are extending Shocktoberfest well into November.
Shocksemberfest?
Yeah, Shocksember. Grossember or something. Yeah, we gotta come up something better on that one. But we're back for another talk about horror anthologies here with our 401 series. So we're getting into senior year of college here, learning about the amazing anthology film or the horror anthology film genre, which is super fun. Today we're talking about Dr. Terror's House of Horrors from 1965.
1965. Look at you. You nailed it.
Yep. Trilogy of Terror, a good 10 years after that at 1975. And then we have VHS, and that movie came out in 2012. Is that correct as well? Yeah. Did I nail them all?
Breaks the mold. Yeah, you did. Look at that.
Look at that. All right, so we got the dates right. Yeah. That's a good start. Hopefully this thing's recording now.
Oh, shit. Was I supposed to be recording?
You were recording, right?
No, yeah. I really am recording. No.
That's scarier than the movies we watched.
Yeah. Well, what I love about this running episode theme that we have is just how well short-form horror, I think, encapsulates this idea, which is, as I was watching, I think it was Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, it kind of occurred to me, horror movies, like in particular, kind of force us to confront all sorts of things that sort of seem to defy scientific explanation, things that are so easily masked and obscured under a mountain of like stress and exhaustion and whatever else that might just go unnoticed in any other scenario. This is particularly acute, I think, in short form horror, where you have to kind of get in and get out so quickly. You have to be efficient about what you show, and it like just very quickly sets up what your day-to-day is and then rips the mask off. And now it's like, wait, is this happening? Is this not happening? And like there's always that little point in each of the stories where it's like, oh, everybody's going out to party, or this guy is bringing a new bride home, or this person is really into plants or whatever. And all
Jordy
those
Verrill.
different things where your whole day just kind of takes a different turn. But as it turns out, in a lot of these, it was stuff that was roiling around them the entire time, and they weren't able to notice it.
Interesting, yeah.
But because it's so short, it really has to get to it really quickly, and it's really fantastic how that works.
So, I mean, we usually start with how these things are framed or our spine or anything like that, and this one is right in the title, a person named Dr. Shrek, which actually means terror, and his House of Horrors, which actually means tarot cards, a deck of tarot cards.
Yeah, it's two codes in one on this one. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
of like obscure references in the title. Yeah,
Dr. Shrek, Doctor of Metaphysics, the science which investigates the first principles of nature and thought.
And nonsense.
Peter Cushing in a really fun goatee and a really cool look that I don't think I've ever seen Peter Cushing in before. He's basically our crypt keeper for this movie on this train with 5 individuals, including a young Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Which is wild.
Very wild. It's like, okay, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, that makes sense.
Yeah, sure, we get that,
Freddie Francis, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
British, Amicus horror movie, set it on a train, okay, that makes sense.
We got all that. All the titles are coming up. Everything's checking the boxes,
but Donald Sutherland, it was a surprise. Yeah, exactly.
Looking very young, very, very youthful. Yeah. I loved it.
Well, let's see what the cards have to say about me.
You are sure you wish to know?
Deal the cards.
But what was so interesting about this 2 and 2 is like that it predated both
Tales from the Crypt,
Horror Express, and Tales from the Crypt. And it's like, what's kind of great is that you see this as a rough draft for Tales from the Crypt, because it's almost the exact same
I was going to bring that
scenario.
Up. Yeah.
Only, I think in the spine, they refined it a little better in Tales from the Crypt, because they got the sort of like, the timeline made a little more sense in that.
They also put it in a crypt. As spooky as you can get, you know, like, yeah.
This one should have been called, the Train to Hell or something.
I like the name Horror Express.
Yeah.
We'll go with that on this one, too.
Little do they know that that will be taken a couple of years from now.
Yeah.
It is funny in this one because, and I think we'll get to this sort of at the end when we get through the whole, spine and everything. But in Tales from the Crypt, what they do so well is that, like, you don't know how these people got there. They're taking this tour through the crypt. And then each of the little stories kind of shows how they died. Right. And then it's sort of the mask is ripped off at the end and you see how they died. And you see that they are dead and awaiting being,
sent to hell,
pushed
right?
through the portal of hell or whatever. And in this one, that part isn't quite so clear. I mean, you put it together by the end, but it's not a one for one. Like, okay, at the very end of this person dies, so that's how they ended up on the train to hell.
It's a potential future that he's foretelling.
Right. It's presented as a potential future, right? But it's,
right,
it turns
and then
out
by the end,
it was the past. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they are on the train to the other side. I don't know if they're going to hell in this one, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're not going down.
Yeah.
It's pretty overt that it's hell in Tales from the Crypt. This one is just kind of a creepy ending, walking down kind of the train station that goes nowhere. Is really that end shot.
They got
really
to the
nice.
end of the line, the end of the line of their lives. Exactly.
Right. Very cool.
I do not manipulate. I use my hands to manipulate themselves and to present your destiny.
In the first story,
pleasantly called Werewolf.
yeah. Well, I should say before that is like the spine starts off. These guys all kind of jump onto this train as like leaving the station. At the last minute, they're hopping in this room, and they're all kind of crammed in there. Peter Cushing is this bizarre character, as you described earlier, and Christopher Lee is having none of his nonsense.
No,
but everyone else
sure.
is all excited to let him do his little magic act with the tarot cards.
Show off his House of Horrors. Yeah, he calls his tarot cards House of Horrors. I thought that was interesting. I don't think I've ever heard them called that before.
This deck can forewarn us. I call it my House of Horrors.
Yeah, I don't remember that from this movie, and I've never heard that before this movie. So
what he does is they ask him what he has in his bag, because he's kind of an interesting fellow. Like you said, these guys are curious. They're clearly kind of wealthy-looking, upper-class gentlemen.
Professional or
definitely
or
businessmen,
class,
of lawyers, doctors, etc. And then they ask this strange cat on the train, like, what the hell's in your bag, man? And he's got my House of Horrors, and that House of Horrors ends up being his deck of cards, his tarot cards, and that was a really interesting. I've never heard it described that way, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, he's got the, as they would call it in Nightmare Alley, it's the tarot cards.
Tarot, yeah.
What kind of deck is this?
This is the tarot, oldest kind of cards in the world.
First story, Werewolf.
Yeah, let's get into the stories here. Werewolf. Very, very. The titles of each of these are pretty on the nose. I don't know if you take a look at these. Werewolf, Creeping Vine. Yeah, it's all pretty much in the title what's going on.
Unlike Trilogy of Terror, you don't actually get the titles in this one. So, it's not like a spoiler when the title comes up.
Yeah, exactly. The spoiler didn't come until I looked at Wikipedia on this one and could find out what the titles actually were. But yeah, this if you want to go into this one's interesting because this is our first taste of what Dr. Terror or Dr. Shrek is actually foretelling or post-telling.
Or not. Yeah, post-telling, it's funny because it's a very kitchen sink drama. It's this guy, gets a call to go work on his old, his family house or whatever.
Right.
That his father maybe had sold or something, but he had lived in when he was a kid and he grew up
generations,
there. And
right?
He's an architect now, and it's like, I'd like to knock down this wall and do a thing, and can you take a look at this? And while we're there, it's like, he sees the old gardener. Hey, buddy, and sees the gardener's daughter, and she's all grown up now and very weird, and you kind of think that okay, the scary part's gonna come from the gardener and or his daughter.
Right.
And then they they find this coffin in the basement.
Sarcophagus.
And,
yeah, it was like a
sarcophagus, actually.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of crazy stuff going on with that one. The plot thickens there, and then it's like, as it turns out, like there's this curse on the house and all this stuff because the architect's family killed some guy who was he a vampire? Was he a thing? Was it
he was a lycanthrope.
Yeah.
I believe that's like the technical term, right? For a werewolf.
Right.
But it was like it was curses and witches, and there was more to it. There was kind of a supernatural magic going on that we find out a little even deeper than just the werewolf thing. But there is a werewolf thing. Yes, this is a definite thing. I think they just used a wolf in this to do the werewolf thing. There wasn't actually like a transformation or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funny part, because you're like, oh, okay, oh wow, it's turning into a werewolf thing, and you think it's going to go down that route.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't really do it. And it turns out that the werewolf was just to kind of throw this guy off, and he's like, "What? I don't get what happened. I shot you with the silver bullets. Do you mean
silver
bullets?"
The legend says the only way to kill a werewolf is with a bullet made from a silver crucifix. I had 6.
You mean these?
Such an awesome reveal.
It was really good,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then the way that the camera just tracks with the witch at the end, giving her little soliloquy of, like whatever, we have cursed your family because you cursed us, blah, 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 all that shit. It was pretty great.
Yeah, it was great. I think the build up to this one, took a little while to build up the old head of steam, but the ending was really great on this short story.
Yeah, and again, I think you've said this before many times that you get forgiven whenever things are either slow or there's like some missteps here and there. As long as you nail that ending, you're going to be forgiven for 90% of the film.
Yeah, totally.
Now, Creeping Vine.
Yeah, this was a great one as well.
This one definitely had Creepshow vibes to me, and Jordy Verrill and all that. Definite inspiration of plants taking over. Yeah. Little Shop of Horrors.
Audrey 2 action. Yeah.
That wasn't there before.
Must have grown while we were away.
Well, we better get rid of it. I mean, it'll kill the line rangers.
So this one was cool too, because it was like they're like, oh, they got this weird vine in our garden. They bring in the expert and like
right, yeah. Some botanist comes in to look at this weird vine that keeps growing and can't be cut down. Right, that's the thing. They can't cut this thing. Right, or it
every
shrieks.
Time they go to like mess with it. It has either self defense or screams or does something. And the guy was like, wow, this is really interesting. I'm playing with this plant. I'm learning. I'm the botanist or whatever. And like he's sitting there studying the hell out of it, and like all the while the plant is growing and growing more powerful and
learning. Yeah, exactly. Growing more powerful too. Yeah, like learning how to defend itself and putting out fires and closing windows and locking doors. Cutting the phone line or something, right? Or the electricity.
Right. Yeah.
It was kind of silly.
Before it had revealed how powerful it had become, this botanist or whatever was all excited, and he was like, wow, this is great, because think about it, a plant could just take over the world. A plant like this could take over the world. Then
there's your foreshadowing, right?
The audience would probably be laughing at that point, like, yeah, right. And then, you see it kicking so much ass that like you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe it could.
And then it cuts to all that like unused footage from Little Shop of Horrors when Audrey 2 is walking through the city, breaking down all the plants and all the other plants, taking over. Yeah, I mean I like this one. It had a silly thing going on, and the effects are super silly. I mean the plant itself is hilarious.
Yeah.
But kind of a cool story. I thought it was a neat ending. It kind of left you in that like, oh shit, this is going to get worse, and this plant's just going to keep growing and take over.
Exactly. Like you could just see it kind of like it wiped out all the players in this kitchen sink drama, but it allowed you to like imagine very quickly, how it would continue to sort of devour the rest of the earth, and so it's like a horror thing. Like the look of it was kind of silly, and maybe the concept felt hard to believe, right?
Sure.
In terms of silliness.
Sure.
But
then don't go watch a movie.
What's funny is that like it was so unlike the werewolf one, like this one, like had like 3 or 4 pages, and then all of a sudden shit was hitting the fan, and it was like kind of in and out really fast.
Yeah, I feel like this was a shorter one in general, right? I think from the
it felt like it anay. I mean, I didn't look at the.
I didn't clock them either. Totally.
Code or whatever. Yeah.
I've heard of these voodoo dances. That's where the action is at night, isn't it? Yeah. You take my advice? Forget it. Why? Man, it's a religious ceremony. So, you ain't that denomination.
But then we get to the next guy, whose name is Biff Bailey.
Yeah, the jazz and voodoo.
This guy, I think he's like a UK jazz band leader
musician,
or whatever.
Yeah.
And his like talent agent or whatever comes in and is like, hey, I booked you an awesome gig. It's out in the West Indies. And you're like, where's that? Otherwise known as the Caribbean.
Yeah.
He gets out there and has a great time. Plays his first set and everyone's all excited. But then he like, what is it? He learns about.
So I mean, the impetus is he wanted to steal this music, not steal it. He wanted to reinvent this music in his own compositions. But they're like, you cannot steal this music because that's going to be a curse, right?
Right. And our Hollywood conception of voodoo is, it's
voodoo dolls,
voodoo dolls and pins through it, and like zombies, and a witch doctor who controls people and whatever. But the actual, sort of religion of voodoo that practiced in Haiti, a big part of it that's misunderstood is that, like, because there's so much, like, music in it,
right?
The thought is, it's not like a gospel church where it's like singing's a big part of the ceremony. No, the idea is that the singing and the dancing is the ceremony. That is the practice. Like, someone put it like, you don't believe in voodoo. The question is, do you do voodoo? Which is like the dancing and the singing.
You perform it.
The whole act of it, the performance of it, and is the religion itself.
What is this?
Oh, well, I was listening to your music, so I wrote it down.
You wrote down the sacred music of the great god Damballa.
And anyway, so this guy sees that, and he's like, "Wow, that would be a great swinging sound, man."
Yeah. No, you don't steal this music, man, because you're just gonna bring a whole shitload of hell into your own life.
God Damballa is a jealous god. If you steal from him, he will be revenged. Wherever you are, he will be revenged. Do not steal from the god Damballa.
This is the one thing you can't do the Elvis thing with, and take.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And
it is a very Elvis thing. That's funny. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so he kind of he does it anyway and finds out the hard way. I think this one kind of helps embody that idea that I was talking about, where it's like there's these forces that are all around you that go unseen, especially in our modern world or whatever, and then, because this guy was so sure that nothing could harm him, and it's like this thing that happens on one of these little islands, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I'm in London now, baby. The swinging 60s are on.
Yeah,
let's take this sound and make it the next new thing. When he did that, he kind of peeled back the layer, and it becomes almost a Clive Barker story, where it's like, underneath all this, underneath everything that we see and hear and think is real, there's this other thing happening, and this
the
guy,
Nightbreed,
yeah, exactly. The guy who came to exact some revenge on good old Biff Bailey, got just sort of unleashed from Biff's transgressions, and that's the whole thing, is like that, either he was like a spirit, or he was a part of this world, and it was the Nightbreed, like you're saying.
Yeah, right.
Part of that whole world, but it's like he was dormant, and then Biff's crossing that Rubicon allowed him to come out and exact this revenge, and it's like, while the guy's costume and whatever, was pretty garish and kind of silly or whatever, and like maybe the lighting was too bright and some of this stuff, the idea behind it all is pretty great. Not only for this idea of like stealing these cultures for crass kind of commercial purposes, and like adulterating it and turning it into something that it's not. But also the fact that the guy gets like punished for it, you know what I mean? It is pretty great.
This one was definitely a comeuppance Tales from the Crypt-ish story.
Right. Well, because the guy who was like, "Hey, man, hey," the whole time, by the end he was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
When it gets back to him, he's like, "Huh? So that's not going to be happy or go or lucky?" You know?
I'm going to change this arrangement, actually. It wasn't too good in the middle, so I think I'll take it home.
Take it home? After what happened here? That was voodoo, man.
Look, you're not still believing in this voodoo stuff, are you?
Shall we move on to the disembodied hand, the Christopher Lee and Michael Gough combination?
Yeah, exactly. Michael Gough, awesome. Yeah, this one is great too. This one felt the most like a Tales from the Crypt episode.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, we start off with this miserable, jerk off art critic,
right,
played by Christopher Lee, and he's just
hated it,
extremely ridiculous and like over the top with his criticism of how much he hated everything. Exactly.
Hates everything.
And then, Michael Gough comes out and is like, "Hey, well, how about you check out my new painting? I think you'll like this one."
Notice the wide sweep of color, the balance, the brushwork, together with a certain denial of the accepted standards, the mock critical humor of the entire composition. You could learn a great deal about painting from this artist, Mr. Landor.
It's great because look at all these lines and the intent here and this and that. And he's like, "Well, a chimp did this one." And he's like, "Oh no!" And like, Michael Gough embarrassed the hell out of him, Christopher Lee, in that moment. Could have just left it at that, but he kept pushing it further and further.
Yeah.
With like getting in his head every time. Christopher Lee was at an event, Michael Gough would be there to be like, "Hey, remember you couldn't recognize art? Right. Remember this?" Yeah. And it drives Christopher Lee insane, and then Christopher Lee tries to hit him with his car and like ends up running over Michael Gough's hand.
Several times I think he runs over his hands. Yeah, it's kind of
okay,
very intentional.
It was the Family Guy joke, like.
Oh my God, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Exactly. Which then takes away Michael Gough, who's the artist, his hands. Like that's kind of what actually transpires here is that he took away his ability to make art.
Right, which ripped out his reason to live, and so he kills himself.
Life,
which then leads his disembodied hand to come exact some revenge.
And that was where I started getting Tales from the Crypt 75 there with some of the rubbery disembodied hands or dismemberments and things like that. And it was great because they showed this hand, and it was a real mechanical thing that was kind of operating on its own on the ground and crawling, and they actually fashioned this thing into a bit of a robot like a puppet, and it was great. That was operating on its own, like I was saying, like on the ground. It was great.
Yeah, a little Addams Family, or maybe Evil Dead 2
kind of the Thing
action.
Thing, Evil Dead 2, like a lot of. I think that this might have inspired all the hands. That Idle Hands, maybe even any horror movies.
Yeah.
But this is. I mean, it did drive him to then kill himself, which then Marsh is then tormented, similar to other Tales from the Crypts and. Other movies of the guilt that you're ridden from, that you have to deal with. And then all of a sudden he starts getting attacked by this disembodied hand, driven off the road, and then he's blinded. And so he gets his just desserts that he can no longer see
poetic
art.
Justice.
I love it. God, I love it.
Out. Yeah,
I loved this episode. Yeah. This was my favorite one. Of course, it's Christopher Lee, and there was, a dismembered hand and all that, and I love it.
What?
It's an old American custom.
Et ceci est une vieille coutume française. Old French custom.
This one's called Vampire.
Yeah.
And this was a silly one. I feel like this is almost a gateway kids horror short that you could show a kid and be like, yeah, this is what scary is.
Right. Because it's not too scary, right? It's like
no, not at all. So Donald Sutherland is in love with this woman, his French bride Nicole. But there is, a report of something like a vampire on the loose, and he finds out that Nicole, his wife or bride-to-be, is the vampire, and his doctor tells him to kill her. And instead we find out that the doctor is also a vampire, and he cannot have more than one vampire in this town.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The town's not big enough for 2 doctors or 2 vampires.
And then he turns into a bat. It's like a kind of a sweet little story,
When you think about, right up until the doctor turned out to be a vampire thing, like, this segment reminded me a little of Cat People, if you remember that one, the Val Lewton one. The same thing, like this, foreign European bride and the happy-go-lucky dumbass American, that a doctor convinces the guy that his wife is a monster or whatever, which is basically Cat People. And then it also kind of reminded me, like on the voodoo one, of course it reminded me a little of the other Val Lewton movie we watched in that same block, I Walked with a Zombie. But it is funny. This is also, I guess, maybe what a slight template for Innocent Blood, right? You got a French female vampire.
Good call. Yeah.
Stay away from me or kill you!
Yeah, this one ended pretty good, and then we go right into the end of the spine here, where we see where everything kind of comes to this deadly finale. I don't know what you want to call that, but we find out that Dr. Shrek is actually, I think, the bringer of death, right? He's kind of the Grim Reaper, bringing these folks to the end of the line, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's what it actually was. That he was he wasn't just some weirdo on the train. He was actually death himself, and was taking these guys on their sort of final journey to the end of the line.
With the credits rolling.
Yeah, like, it's interesting because as the credits are rolling, the guys are just kind of wandering into the station, like, well, I guess we go this way.
Yeah, like, where are you going to go then? Is this it?
But, I mean, it was a cool idea. I think the very end didn't quite get it, because it didn't leave you on the horror note that it felt like it was going for.
I agree.
Because you see them sort of wandering aimlessly toward a train station. You're like, okay, I guess we go this way.
Yeah. That's why we need to throw people in hell at the end of these, or do something dramatic, right? Or the end of Tales from the Hood, where it's, you're in hell, motherfuckers. You need to go, boom. It needs to be a clear cutoff.
Well, it feels like it needs to, have that horror punch.
Yeah. Whatever it may be.
But, like Dead of Night did that so well with, like,
exactly. Yeah.
The guy
the wraparound,
the whole house with the entire, with every single, like, short story coming back to haunt him, and then he gets out of the house only to pull back up into the house at the very beginning. You're like, oh no,
you got to live through this again, motherfucker. That movie is awesome too. Oh man.
Yeah.
We've watched some good ones for Anthology, man. We've watched some really good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had a couple duds in there, but we definitely had at least one solid one every time.
We've watched over 100 movies on this show. We're definitely going to hit a couple duds. And Anthology alone is basically like doing 15 films per episode, like 15 short pieces, you got to keep all these things together. And no, we're not using Wikipedia or our notes at all while we're on this. This is all off our memory.
A lot of strands to keep in your head, man.
A lot of strands to keep in my head, man. A lot of strands in old Duder's head.
You know what's funny though? Like, I feel like just in terms of structuring the story out, I feel like the Disembodied Hand one was probably the strongest one to end on. And what they probably should have done was swapped Vampire with Disembodied Hand and had the Vampire come first.
Right, because that's kind of the golf buddies with the ghost episode from Dead of Night. You needed that one little fun one, or a Jordy Verrill, right? A little bit more lighthearted. Yeah. Jordy Verrill is very tragic. I shouldn't say that it's lighthearted, but it is a little silly.
It starts off lighthearted, though. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But this one, I agree with you 100%. With a little bit restructuring, put Donald Sutherland's Vampire right before Disembodied Hand and close off with that Christopher Lee episode and Michael Goff. Yeah. Oh man, what a finish.
Yeah, totally.
Because that's a punchy ending too.
it's a punchy ending of the stories, and then like, you know, you save the like very skeptical guy to last, and
because he's the one that makes the big shit at the beginning, right? Oh, this guy's full of crap, you know. What are they, charlatans or whatever? You know, like parlor tricks, blah blah blah. Yeah, don't believe anything this man says. But yeah,
poppycock.
And that would have just made sense from the setup that we got from the beginning, is to put him at the end. I agree with you. I got it in my notes as well.
I must warn you, gentlemen, this is undoubtedly a well-rehearsed prelude to some shabby form of confidence trick. You can fool all these others as much as you please, Doctor, but kindly leave me out of it.
Should we move on to the made-for-TV Trilogy of Terror that I remember so fondly as a kid? I used to watch this a lot as a kid, actually, growing up, and this was one of those that I was first introduced to Karen Black, and then Karen Black, and then Karen Black, and then Karen Black again.
Karen Black, what an obscure reference.
Anyway.
That's such an aside.
Yeah.
So, Trilogy of Terror, a 1975 American made-for-television anthology horror film. There are only 3 of them in this one, hence the name.
Yeah.
But they all star Karen Black as a different character, or character.
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, this was pretty interesting. It definitely has that made-for-TV vibe a bit. We can go into the first episode with Julie.
Miss Eldridge, you go to the movies much?
Sometimes, not often.
No? I do. A lot. I thought that maybe we
It's
could...
very nice talking with you, Chad, but I do have another class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you.
Yeah, so this one, so it's a made-for-TV movie.
No spine.
All starring Karen Black. No spine,
Right.
definitely. But they're all adaptations of
Richard
Matheson short stories. Or, I guess in the case of Millicent and Therese, it was like a little bullet point thing. He didn't even write the story, and the guy who adapted that one, I think...
William Nolan?
William Nolan, yeah. Was the one who kind of brought that one to life.
Millicent and Therese one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there is no spine on this one. So it's...
Yeah.
But despite not having a spine, it's interesting because it kind of works in the sense that it's all Karen Black. And because of that, it feels like, you know, this is like this weird dream where it's like, you know, where have I seen this person before? And it's like, you know...
Right.
You know, we see all these different, totally different sides of the same person.
Yeah,
or
I felt it was like multiversal.
Exactly. Exactly. Is this like a multiverse version of like, you know, someone?
This is Karen Black as Julie.
Yeah. Of like Tales from the Crypt or something, where it's like,
totally.
You know, this person is in a certain hell where she's just, you know, changing, you know, circumstances in each episode. It's kind of interesting in that sense.
Although I'd say in Julie, she makes out pretty well. And she's just she's what's interesting about this is that a teacher is approached by one of her students and is taken out, and you think that he thinks he's in charge and taking advantage of this woman, and he actually does take advantage of her.
Yeah, no, he full on drugs her and rapes her.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to check all the boxes there. This guy's a real scumbag, guys. And it's actually, I mean, pretty graphic for a made-for-TV. They get into some pretty heavy context there with what happens. But we find out at the end that this was her plan all along, and she's been stringing this guy along kind of in reverse. And this is her, I guess it's like her plaything or her fetish or something.
That's her, like,
right?
her fantasy or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of funny because, okay, you take... you know, Karen Black in her prime, and you're like, oh, look, she's unattractive because she's wearing glasses. And, like, you know,
it's like the movie She's All That. She's not hot because she's got glasses on. No.
I just got the weirdest idea. Yeah, what? I wonder what she looks like under all those clothes. Are you kidding?
I get what they were trying to do, right? She was just
look, she's wearing frumpy pantyhose. It's,
right.
Yeah. She didn't comb her hair or whatever.
Right.
But it's like, you know, so this, you know, creepy guy, you know, hits on his teacher, takes her out to the drive-in. They're watching a horror movie, and he goes off and gets sodas or something. And when he comes back, like, it turns out he had, like, drugged her. And then he takes her to a motel, takes like blackmail pictures of her.
Yeah.
And then I think it's very heavily implied, I can't remember now, that he rapes her while she's asleep.
She absolutely takes advantage of her while she was sleeping after that drive-in theater. Yeah.
Right, okay.
At least it was implied. They didn't show it. Yes, you're right.
And then it was like, presumably weeks later, it's like he's in class, like, you know, kind of bossing her around. Yeah. And then, you know, we see them together in maybe her apartment or something. Or maybe it's his apartment. And he's ordering her around and being really shitty. And at one point, she's just like, yeah, I don't feel like playing this game anymore. And he's like,
exactly.
What? I'm in charge here. I'm in charge. And it's like, are you?
Whose idea did you think this whole thing was?
What are you talking about?
Did you really think that that dull little mind of yours could possibly have conceived any of the rather dramatic experiences we've shared?
It is funny because, you know, I went back and watched a piece of this one, and at the very setup of this one, you see her when she's in sort of full mousy, you know, frump mode. There's a moment where like she stops, like, you know, writing on the blackboard and like sits on her desk and like has her kind of her leg open on the desk and like you know you could see that like it was like a plant for like, you know,
right,
because when you see it the first time, you just think, oh, this guy's just like, you know, trying to, you know, get a peek up her skirt there. But
and she did it unintentionally. She just was at a bad
angle. And you thought it was unintentional,
yeah.
Exactly. But later when you watch it the second time, you realize that, you know, that was part of the plant, that she was setting him up for this shit, and sort of seducing him and whatever.
And that was only part of it, according to her, in her last monologue and her, you know, going out speech there as he's fading away through poison. She says flat out that she telepathically implanted him with these like seductive feelings.
Do you remember the day you watched me walk up the steps? Since that moment, your mind has not been your own. Why do you think you suddenly had the overwhelming desire to see what I looked like under all those clothes?
But we do see that this is not the first, because we see that she's got a scrapbook full of all of the missing people and missing young gentlemen from each of the college campuses she's been working on, or this college campus. Yeah.
But yeah, it was the idea was that she went from being the victim to being someone who was just pretending to be the victim to, you know, ensnare her victim.
Very Spider-ish.
But, you know, you didn't feel particularly bad for the guy because he was
a piece of shit. Yeah. And they set that up very nicely that he got his just desserts. I loved it.
My spoiled sister. Her sweet little face never fooled me for an instant.
Let's get into the next one, and then I'll say something else about Julie.
Commandant Lassard from Police Academy and the twins. The
Is that who that was?
Yeah, that's...
the doctor guy?
Yeah. So I was making sure it was him, because I was like, is that really him? But then at the end of the film, I saw it's like George Gaines is his name. And when I saw him, I know that voice very well, you know, Mahoney. So this one is about a set of twins, one being an evil person, or, you know, a little bit more feisty, and then the other one being a little bit prudish.
Right.
Did you destroy her room?
Yes, I destroyed her room. Why shouldn't I? She deserved it. I mean, where does that little twit get off, thinking she's got the right to stick her nose into my affairs? Don't worry, Doc. I'm sure she's got it all straightened up by now, in her proper little housekeeper's manner.
Therese is the seductive one.
Correct.
She's the one who had the like boyfriend, and then the boyfriend comes over and is like,
"Is she here?"
Oh, no. She's gone to a party.
A party? This afternoon at the funeral, she seems so distraught.
My sister is an unusual girl.
Hey, what's going on? He's like, I'm her sister, and, you know, my sister is a piece of shit, and she doesn't actually like you at all, buddy. Take a hike.
Right.
Pornography, Satanism, voodoo, witchcraft. These books aren't just relics, Mr. Anmar. She uses them to capture the souls of others.
You don't really expect me to believe this, do you?
But you must believe me. Therese's soul is damned.
Then, you know, we get the doctor coming over to see one of them or the other, and the other one opens the door, and it's like, whoa, there's a you know, full on different personality, and that person, you know, is the more seductive, outgoing version, and she's sitting on the couch trying to seduce him and all these things, and he's like, okay, take it easy.
You're really a very handsome man. If you just loosen up a little. Oh, did that bother you?
I don't think we need to carry this any further.
And like, after the doctor leaves, she goes upstairs to like yell at her sister through the door, and then goes and lays on her bed and pouts. And the sister we see on the inside of the door is sitting there writing in her diary, which she kind of does at the beginning.
When I returned to the house, I was still thinking of Tracy's broken doll, and it was then that the solution suddenly became quite clear.
It seems clear that one's going to try to kill the other, one sister's going to try to kill the other, and then like
Right.
then we have the doctor show up, and it turns out that they were successful. But the doctor tells, I don't know, the coroner or whoever it was, like,
right, in the psycho ending monologue.
Right.
Her name was Therese Millicent Lorrimore. The most advanced case of dual personality I have ever seen.
I had this one figured out way from the beginning. I
Yes,
think that was
I know,
the problem
me too.
I had with this episode, was that there wasn't enough of the misdirection that usually those things give you, like putting them in like the same room or something. They just put them, which they couldn't technically, but I mean, they had to find some way to put them together somehow so you could, you know, fool the audience into thinking that it was two separate people.
Well, I agree. I think two things. One, I think that scene where the blonde-haired one goes and like yells at her through the door, and then a minute later we see on the other side of the door the brunette one, you know, writing in her book. They should have done that early on.
Yes, or a
like
couple
maybe
of
right
those.
at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
And do it more than once, or have a way to, like, you know, almost have the part where it's, you know, it's like, okay, I don't talk to her, you know, I'll only talk to her on the phone or something, and then when we see like a virtual phone call essentially, playing out, which would essentially be playing in her head. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was, I think we should have had this story come first, because we had already seen with the Julie story, Karen Black go from playing sort of prudish, you know, hair up in a sloppy bun and glasses or whatever, to someone, you know, a lot more confident and in charge. And so we had already seen this dynamic play out in a slightly different way in the first story, so we were kind of like prepped for it. And then when it came, you're like, oh, okay, well, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And if they'd played this one first, in the Julie story, because you stay with her and you feel so bad for her for so long, you're like, oh, okay, this is just, what the hell's happening here? This is just her getting, thrown down the stairs, in these circumstances. And it turns out, no, there's a reversal.
Yeah.
It had this thing where it's like, you know, the sort of punchline of it's the most intense case of dual personality I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, yeah. I know,
But let's get into story number 3, Amelia.
Amelia should have been, and actually was, the last story.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is no way this couldn't have been the last one, because this is going out on the horror punch that we've wanted from both of these movies. And we got it in this one.
Yeah.
Amelia is just a person that lives alone, clearly has a rough relationship with her mother, who she speaks to on the phone. Reminds me of the phone conversations that Dana Barrett had in Ghostbusters. Yes, Mom.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a Ghostbuster, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But she, you know, is talking about this new boyfriend that she's got, and he's a collector or someone that's interested in certain, you know, historical things.
Anthropologist or something?
Mother, there's a man. His name is Arthur Breslow. He's a teacher at City College. It's his birthday. And, well, I sort of promised him that we'd spend the evening together.
She finds him a Zuni fetish doll that has a curse on it with a chain, and if you remove the chain from the Zuni fetish doll, it will come to life and kill you, according to the legend, of course.
Like the chain is what keeps the spirit from, you know, coming after you, or something like that.
It's a Zuni hunting fetish. It's really interesting. There's supposed to be some Zuni hunter's spirit inside of it. There's a golden chain wrapped around it to keep the spirit from making the doll come to life. It says, should the chain be removed, spirit and doll will become one living... Well, that's what it says.
Keeps the doll only a doll and not Chucky.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, right.
Of course, in a fit with her mom getting off the phone, she accidentally knocks this chain off of this thing.
Yeah. Should have secured the chain a little harder.
Yeah, that was not on very hard.
It?
And it was kind of a little shitty chain, too. Like,
yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
That thing can hold a spirit back?
Mom?
But yeah, this is a really fun one because the Zuni fetish doll does in fact come to life. It really does go for the horror. They really nailed a lot of the puppetry and quick shots of this thing running around the house, and then sometimes on just like a black background that just kind of gave you the impression of this thing coming at you, which I thought was still effective.
Totally.
This was great, and it had a great battle. She battles this thing. She goes full Gremlin style at some point, Gremlin's mom style. Screwdriver, I think she takes to him. She does a whole bunch. She tries to drown it, burn it.
Right.
But nothing can stop this thing.
Yeah, or at least she didn't find whatever that would have been. Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Well, and then we should say, it ends with sort of this.
Yeah.
I guess what's become kind of an iconic shot.
Yes.
To reveal that. Well, so she gets on the phone or whatever and says, "Okay, Mom, why don't you come on over?"
This is Amelia, Mom. I'm sorry I acted the way I did. I think we should spend the evening together just the way we planned.
And then we get that iconic shot of her smiling with and doing the tapping thing.
Yeah, and then she opens up her mouth, and it's a pure mouth of the Zuni fetish teeth. I thought that was... Right. I remember that as a kid. That's probably the only thing I remember from this movie.
Almost, yeah,
they're piranha. Just like rows of sharp blades. And man, that smile she gives at the end, that movie, it ends on such a good note of horror. Again, I think that's why this was one of those movies that actually kind of was forgiven for some of the... ho-hum storylines and maybe that second one, but still a classic.
It's also one of those things where it's like, it's like because it had Karen Black in 3 different roles or in 3 different stories and 4 different roles, possibly 5 different roles. Actually 6, because in this one she also turns into the Zuni doll at the end. Each one, like her personality kind of switches toward the end there.
Yeah.
But it leaves you with this sense that like, you had just experienced this like nightmare with this same person, caught in different, horrific scenarios.
Yeah.
It kind of works without the spine is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Also, what was interesting about Amelia, the last one, like she was the only actor in it, really. It was just her. And
she did, and on that phone call, that felt like a real phone call. I thought that was real acting, and she brought the chops on that episode. I think that's clearly the best one of the 3, but it is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. She didn't have Commandant Lassard in that one. She didn't have the scumbag boyfriend, right? In this one, this is just her in an apartment. That's it.
Right. Well, and it reminded me a little of the Corbin Bernsen one in
Tales from
the Crypt, where it's like or Tales from the Hood. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where
I agree.
Is fighting a doll or multiple dolls.
It's just him.
One. Yeah, and it was just him, like kind of running around, trying to
rocking it, Corbin
destroy
Bernsen.
These little things.
Yeah.
And it was kicking his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that was Trilogy of Terror. There was a sequel to this that came out quite a few years later. I never saw that, but same director, Dan Curtis.
Also with Karen Black?
No, but they did do the same thing with one actress playing all 3.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Lisette Anthony.
From USA Pictures, 3 spine-tingling tales. What is a Zuni fetish doll?
Should we fast forward onto VHS? Yeah, there you go.
Let's do it. Had a little break in the tape here. Hey, what tape are we using to record this episode on?
Tape 56, I think, right?
Oh no!
You erased all the footage, right?
Yeah.
So this one's interesting because we definitely have a spine, but this one's kind of a combination. This is VHS from 2012, right? 2012, yeah. And so this is both an anthology film and a found footage film. So we've got two of these things kind of mashed together. Whether or not you love, I'm not a big fan of found footage films, not since, Blair Witch, the original Blair Witch, the Blair Witch Project.
Right. Well, I mean, and actually, was Blair Witch, speaking of that real quick,
the first?
Was Blair Witch like the first? Like,
I thought it did it the best that I had seen. I don't know if it was the first.
Yeah, I mean, it. Paranormal Activity was decent, but it didn't have the same.
No.
It didn't hit the same way that our good friend Blair Witch did, where it's like, it kind of did everything so perfectly. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. But I just thought that was interesting that this was kind of a combination of the two. Whether or not that worked, I felt like at times it got a little muddy. I think when you're jumping between stories and all that, sometimes you might need to settle the camera a little bit just to let your audience know where the hell you are. But I did think that it was interesting that in each of these episodes, they did find a way to write in how it was being recorded so that it wasn't like there was just a camera crew running around taking footage of this randomly,
Right. I feel like Amateur Night and the last one it was the same gimmick, right? It was kind of a nanny cam.
The last one was 10:30. It was Halloween, 10/31/98. It was the teddy bear and everyone was in costumes, and it was a nanny
teddy
cam.
bear had a nanny cam essentially on it.
Yeah,
in his costume, and then Amateur Night he had those spy glasses or whatever.
Right.
And I think that one was great. And then the one in the woods, I don't know what the name of that one was.
The sixth
Tuesday
thing,
the 17th?
No, the sixth. Tuesday the 17th. Sorry. Yep.
So that one...
That was against the glitch, or whatever the hell that was, yeah.
You know what it was? I think all of them... Actually, no, you're right. That one was great, too, for keeping... for why they had the camera running.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
And I guess the sick thing that happened to Emily, or whatever that one was called, also works that way. The only one that was kind of iffy for me was the second honeymoon. Like, it was like... There were certain parts where it was like, why would you be recording at this part? And whenever they do that... It drives me crazy.
And the only way that they wrote that out was at the end she asked if she erased the footage. And that was kind of like, you erased that, right? It was like they were using it as kind of like they could watch it, their kink, and they could kind of watch it while they're getting together, like this thing. But, you erased that, right? But it's like, that one I agree. But we should start at the beginning, though.
No, let's start at the beginning. All I was going to say with that was just that, like, that and maybe some of the spine stuff, it was like, there was some stuff in the spine where it felt like, God, why would they be rolling on this too? It was just one of those things where it's like, you really, really got to have a good reason for it, and you got to be able to put that reason right up front, and not to have it be like something that's drawing too much attention to it, but like also have this plausible explanation for it.
Okay, here's the deal. We got to break into this house, and all we have to do is steal this one VHS tape.
Right, and that's why I think that tape 56, which is the name of they call it the frame in Wikipedia, the frame narrative. We'll call it the spine because that's our name. Yeah. But it's this criminal gang who or this group of no-gooders that are just filming all of their antics, and it seems to like they're just like collecting this footage, and I think that was kind of how they did that, or how they wrote that in.
I think everything up until when they got into the house made sense.
Yeah, because they were actually going in there for a reason. Someone offered them money. They needed to break in to get one tape from this person's collection or whatever, a VHS tape.
Yeah.
So then they come in and they find a corpse sitting in front of some odd audio-visual equipment and a ton of TVs, and they don't think anything of it.
They're just like, no big deal.
Oh, man, he smells.
Here, see if these tapes are the tape. Let's just have you watch it. Well, how do you know what the tape was? That they had no explanation of what that was supposed to be. It was kind of weird. But I think backing it all the way up, like, so we are introduced to these goons because it's like, we see a lot of like and different little pieces of tape,
very twitchy,
that are taping over different shit. And it's like, there are these guys who go around doing epic pranks where they, sexually assault this chick in a parking garage, and like,
right,
it's
awful.
Then, go to a abandoned house or something and break all the windows or whatever. And then it kind of cuts in and out of this guy doing like a hidden camera sex tape, porn revenge type situation.
Yeah. Was this to drive it in that these guys suck that bad? Was that just to say, like, this is their character and this is how deplorable these folks are?
I think so, because I think, you don't want to feel bad for them. If all they were just, bored teens, breaking windows, maybe you'd feel bad for them. But if they're, creeps and rapists and whatever else, then maybe maybe you don't give a shit about them when they don't make it through the end of the movie. Spoiler alert.
Right.
We see this as like a setup, and then we see this thing that happens also in Cloverfield, if you remember that movie, which is also kind of a found footage.
Sure. Yeah.
And that one did the found footage okay.
Yes.
What the found footage did so well was that, like, this guy who was on the tape being recorded or whatever, the thing that they were taping over was some nice
New Year's party
date and like a thing that he had at going to Coney Island or something with this girl that he used to like. And after all the sort of horror and all the crazy shit that with the monster that happens in the movie, at the very end we like cut back out to the end of the tape from when he was on his date and they were having a good time on that carousel ride. And it was this nice little palate cleanser to take us out of the movie.
Except for the Easter egg that's in the background.
Right. We see the thing like the
there you go.
meteor
Okay, good,
fall or something like that. Yeah.
I think that's a good movie. Yeah, I think it's a good, well-constructed film.
Exactly. But like, so they used the tape over thing really well in that one. And a couple of years later, they kind of have that in this as well. And it's like, which tape are you using? You're taping over this. But it has nothing to do with anything. Like, I was like, okay, we're going to finally figure out what this rape was all about. And like,
right.
It's like, no.
We don't see that girl again
it was just
or anything.
Useless. And it was like, yeah.
And it was just to make him out to be a real scumbag, right? Yeah, to be a creep.
Yeah. So, they did it so well in Cloverfield. Let's do that here. But, just to establish that he's a creep, because we can't think of other ways to make these people unsympathetic other than them, sort of being horrible to women.
What's that?
What are you talking about?
Is that your camera?
What can you talk about?
Here's a thing that I'd love to pitch to re-edit this film. Just remove the spine and just have something very simple of this person like going through a bunch of tapes that he finds or something, and all of a sudden Amateur Night starts, and it's like, what the hell are all these tapes,
Yeah.
And like, you didn't have to get into all this business with. I still don't understand the full spine, to be totally honest. I something doesn't click with me with that.
Well, I think a part of it was like, well, I don't know if this would have made a difference at all, but supposedly the spine got cut way down because they put more short films in this, and so they needed less spine. And
interesting.
Maybe there was something with the guy who's dead on the couch who disappears and reappears, and maybe he's the one who kills them at the end. Yeah, it's like
possibly
they're like, hey, let's do the Blair Witch thing, right? Let's have these guys go somewhere scary that they shouldn't be, and then all the things that they don't think are possible sort of happen to them. And it's that horror thing again of like, this is all here, it all exists, but it can't possibly exist because I pay taxes and deal with traffic and whatever. Like all the like horrible things that grind your soul in day-to-day life. There's no way that anything scary or supernatural can happen. So they go off to do this as some sort of like way to make money, and like one guy's like standing up in the back seat with no seatbelt on and like farting into the other guy's face, and he's like, dude, what are we doing? And it's like, well, we're gonna go
pink eye, bro,
steal it.
Yeah.
We're gonna go steal a tape. Yeah. And it's like, why are we stealing the tape? Don't worry about it, bro. And it's like, okay. And I was like, okay, this is gonna come back. We're gonna understand what this tape's all about.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna have that. No, it doesn't go anywhere. Really, you're right. Tape 56 should have just been cut out, and it should have just been like random video found footage movies.
I think when they get into Amateur Night, I thought it was pretty good. I thought each of that segment was pretty good. It was a nice twist. This is where you get your opening line from, right? This strange vampiric siren type Lilith creature that's a bloodsucker. I'm not entirely sure which demon. She could be anything.
Succubus or something.
Succubus, yeah, exactly.
What's great about that one is like that. Okay, so
yeah.
Getting into Amateur Night. So I mean, well, just as a explanation, if no one's seen this thing, it's like, you know, basically tape 56. They go into this guy's living room, start playing random tapes, and the random tapes are the things that we watch as the little short stories.
There you go.
Even though it kind of like it's very unsatisfying in the spine, the short stories are actually pretty good. So in this one, Amateur Night is the first one, and we get these college age bros who are all hopped up on the pickup artist, and I hope they serve beer in hell, and all these all those little like.
Did you read that book by Mystery? Fucking losers.
Yeah. So they're all like, hey, we're gonna do this, and like, here, take these spy glasses, and we're gonna record ourselves banging some chick that we pick up at a bar, and we'll be able to sell it on the internet or something. But essentially, they're gonna make a porn tape, a found footage porn tape, and hope they don't get sued, and hope they can make some money on it. But we don't have to worry about that part of the plan, because I don't think that's gonna happen, guys. But anyway, they go off to a bar. 2 of the 3 bros who are not wearing the glasses, are having a lot more success, doing negging and all of their little, pickup artist tricks. And like, and the guy wearing the glasses doesn't have a lot of game, but there's this one chick who seems to be interested in him. And how does he know that? Because she stares at him very intently and says,
Well, I like you too. So, do you ever come here? Oh, okay.
Little does he know that she has scales and claws for feet.
Yeah. Well, she's got really intense eyes, but that wasn't enough to sort of,
right,
make her seem that different.
She's a beautiful girl. These guys are drunk off their ass, high on all of their business, and they bring her back to this motel room to clearly, like you said, film a cheap amateur porn and hope they don't get caught. But what's fantastic is that this girl is not just a normal girl.
Fuck! Shit! That Jill just fucking bit me. What? Oh, fuck! She really just fucking bit me! Jesus Christ!
And then, as it turns out, this person who's been saying these weird things all night and has a weird, intense stare isn't a person at all. She's
we get small bites, right? There's a ramp up of the horror here. So we get one of the guys gets bit on the hand. He's like, "This bitch bit me," blah blah blah. Oh my god, what are we gonna do?
Right.
Then we see her face, and all of a sudden she looks right at the camera, and she's got the fangs, she's got the face, everything changes. She's very vamp, right?
She got Karen Black Zuni face at the end there.
Right, she becomes the Zuni siren succubus here. But she takes out all these guys. I mean, I think she rips off one of their dicks at one point. Like, it's really graphic and really satisfying.
Yeah, like tears out his nuts or something. Yeah.
Yeah, just awesome. Like, they went for the gore. They went for this cool transformation. She becomes this fully winged creature. Like, she is really well designed.
That was exactly. I thought that was a really great part of it too.
Oh yeah.
Like, so she kind of chases the main guy wearing the glasses, down the stairs, and like, he falls and hurts himself, and like, then I don't know what, like,
doesn't she like perch on top of him?
She tries to like suck his dick through his pants or something, and he's like, because it's like, first of all, his wrist is destroyed. Second of all, he saw his 2 homies get turned into blood and guts or whatever. It's not fully working. He didn't have a standing at attention in about 10 seconds. And she's like, what? and she, as this monster, feels rejected. And he's like, okay, I've got a little time. I can run away. He's like, help me. He's like, and then all of a sudden, all we see is like the point of view glasses that he's wearing, like, just kind of, whoop,
I thought that was
whips
awesome.
off the frame. Yeah. And you're like, wait, what's going on? And then you see that he's really, really high.
Yeah.
400 feet up in the air. And
it's getting cold. Yeah.
And then he looks up and sees this like winged thing flying, and it's the "I like you" chick, and then all of a sudden the glasses fall off of him, and like they just kind of tumble down to earth or whatever. It was really intense.
I mean, like you could put it together like this thing just like flew him up even higher into the sky and just probably devoured him while flying. Like it's just so awesome how they ended that one. And they went for the monster and they went for the creature. They didn't pull any punches at the end. I mean, this thing was a monster and well designed, well created, well directed.
And maybe like when the Zool monster trying to give you a beach at the bottom of the stairs with your broken wrist. When she says, "Do you like me?"
You say yes.
So I mean, we can go back to tape 56, but we know what's happening, right? It's
or
just
we can just move
house.
on to the next one.
Let's just go. I was going to say that Second Honeymoon, directed by Ty West. I'm a fan of Ty West. I like his stuff. This one was interesting. I wasn't too sold on why this one was being filmed, but we could talk about this. It's a guy and a girl, or a married couple. They're off on their honeymoon.
Yeah, or like a delayed honeymoon or something. It was something like that.
And they were documenting this along the way.
Yeah. And they're on a cross-country road trip, and they're like, okay, let's have a video of our adventures through, I can't remember where they were going, like, New Mexico or something. They ended up at the Grand
West,
Canyon at one point,
Southwest,
yeah.
Hey there, feller. This here's Pappy, and it must be your lucky day, 'cause I have some words of wisdom just for you.
They encounter a fortune teller.
Yeah. It was like big. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was like Zoltar or Zoltan.
Yeah. I mean, the fortune teller, like, it was definitely a fun, creepy moment, but it wasn't like, I was like, oh boy, here we go. What's going to happen? And it didn't really have much to do with it, but it did kind of lend an early creep factor to it. Whereas otherwise it would have just been them, kind of like, where are we now? Oh, we're, 10 miles outside of Tucson or whatever.
But the one thing though, the fortune teller, which is like a prospector, it like picks one of those machines.
Oh, right.
But what it said was,
a happy reunion with a loved one will make life all that you ever wanted it or dreamed it to be. You have a very trusting nature and are easily taken in by so-called friends. Do not be so anxious to do favors unto others, as there is one who is just waiting to take advantage of your good nature.
So I think this is the one, aside from the spine, that was bothering me in terms of the why they were filming. It made sense on the road trip. It made sense in certain moments. It made sense during the Zoltan moment, and when the guy like goes really close to the edge of the cliff or whatever, and all those things. There was one part where he was like, really, begging for sex, and she was like, what the hell are you talking about? Not in the mood, or whatever it was.
I said I would do it if you would just turn the camera off.
That's boring with your sweatshirt on.
It's important for the characters to like show this dynamic, but it was just like the reason why the camera was on felt weird at that moment. And then it's like, I think the other thing was that, like, the creepiest stuff where it was like, we don't know whose point of view it is, and that the camera's like kind of like looking in on them at night. And then in the morning, it was like, some money's gone or this or that. It's like, it's almost the planes, trains, and automobiles.
Exactly,
like, The guy comes in and steals the money out of his wallet. Very funny. Where's my money?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It was this slow burn thing where we see it at night and it's like, okay, who's filming this? Oh, we see the guy. Okay, so the wife must be filming this. And it turns out, no, we also see
because
her
we
sleeping.
See both of them.
Did you take money out of my wallet?
No.
Well, you must have, because I had $100 in here.
When would
and
I do
now I
that?
have $0 in here.
It happens again, and like the second time, we get we get the vicious kills or whatever.
I mean,
now,
it's straight into
a
stabbing into the throat. Like, it is a really brutal kill. Like,
it's brutal, yeah.
Fucks this guy up, decapitates him pretty much, and then he chokes on his own blood. And she films it, right? I mean, that's right. What she's filming.
And I guess you're right. Like, so part of the reason that they were filming that stuff was like that they're gonna get off on it later.
That's what I thought. But the other one. So what the reveal is though is that this is a secret lover that this woman has, another woman, and she's actually, I guess. I don't know if this is something that they do or this was just the affair and this is their time to kill this guy. I'm not sure what the motivation was or anything, but they do kill this person and then they end up together, or they're together. We see that they have a relationship, the two women.
Yeah.
But then the thing that Stephanie, who's the lead in this for the whole time, she asks the lover, are you going to erase this?
Did you erase it?
He was like, so did you watch The Kink already?
Where I thought this was going was that, like, okay, the footage was going to be there as like a plant that, like, you know, they're on their honeymoon, everything's going well, and then, like, someone must have broken in, stole the money, and killed him or something like that. You know, it's like, that would have been like a double indemnity style, you know, almost film noir plot of, like, okay, my lover's going to sneak in, get this footage, you know, kill the guy, and then, like, you know, I will have a plausible out for, you know, my husband waking up and, you know, with his head cut off or whatever. But it wasn't really that. It was just that they were filming it for kicks, and then it's like, hey, did you erase that tape?
Right.
I don't know. Okay. And so there was just a little, like, thing where it was like they needed another pass at the script there about, like, why was the camera running, and, like, that was part of the plan.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was just a draft, an extra draft. I think they needed to kind of.
I agree. I think
iron some of those kinks out.
That wasn't completed, but I do think that Ty West can really drive home horror and that mood and that tone, because there was some creep out moments in that.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff was really scary.
Yeah,
scary. Like, if this were, like, just filmed not as a found footage, like, you know, the dynamics between the husband and the wife were really good, and, like, the sort of, like, building tensions and the scariness of, like, what the hell's happening here, all that was done really well. It was just that if we're going to have it be a found footage thing, well, then all of a sudden you need to have this extra layer of, like, okay, why is this being filmed? Oh, is it being filmed to give the wife an alibi that, okay, look, it clearly wasn't her killing her because, you know, she's filming her in bed and then, you know, stabbing this person or whatever. But it wasn't really that. So, yeah, it was, it left a little to be desired on the found footage part of it.
I don't understand, though. Like, you go to this lake every year. It's just like a tradition type thing, or what's the deal?
No, it's just fun, and not many people go up there.
Let's get into Tuesday the 17th.
Right. Which would be the Tuesday after Friday the 13th?
That's correct, right? 14, 15,
Yeah.
16, 17th. Yeah, Tuesday
Right.
the 17th. That's really funny because it does have that slasher vibe to it.
It's definitely a slasher, and what's great about this is, like, the reason this person is filming the whole time, as it turns out, is to try and have evidence of
something
this killer that comes out of nowhere, and because no one believed her the first time.
Because a group of kids go into the forest. We know this. You know, we group of kids go in to hang out. We've heard this story before.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's some sort of glitchy spirit or ghost killer that's roaming the forest that's taking these kids out one by one. It's a really odd effect. It's a form of a person, but it's just a glitchy version of that. I wasn't too clear on what it was. I'm assuming a spirit of sorts, but it was an interesting choice visually.
It's imagining, you know, Jason haunting Crystal Lake as a
ghost.
Spirit versus you know, somebody who's, like, actually a real person or whatever.
A full floating vaporous apparition, and it's real. Yeah.
Exactly. And what's funny is, like, so there are 4 or 5. There are 4 friends, and one of them in her backstory was a final girl of the first time she had gone out there. And then she brings all these other people in just to be cannon fodder so that she can try to catch.
You're all bait to try to get this thing, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, you know, I don't know you guys that well, but I brought you out here just to be bait or whatever. And, like, then we see, you know, the people get killed one by very glitchy footage, and we don't really see it. We just see, like, you know, the camera starts to glitch out, and then after it's glitching, oh no, my neck's spurting blood.
I like an invisible killer. That's fun. Or semi-invisible, translucent.
Right. And you know, she has that line about, you're all gonna die out here, and he's like, what? He's like, okay, just kidding. And then, like, you know, she explains her master plan of, like, why she brought them out there is to try and film this thing, because no one believed her when she was a final girl the first time.
Yeah.
And then I think at the end there, we're supposed to understand that she had was killed and becomes part of the
Because she's yet again the final girl battling this glitch killer, and she does pretty well against him. She lures it into traps and
she
bear
goes
traps.
like full on predator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, kill me, do it,
kill me.
Yeah, the bed of spikes and everything, just like Predator.
Right.
But yeah, it ultimately does kill her. And then it slashes her stomach, eviscerating her.
Right.
Then we see that she has then joined the forest as a glitch. So she's kind of become one of those herself. I thought that was a satisfying ending.
Yeah, like she wasn't able to, I guess, overcome the bad guy, but she, became one of him, I guess. So, on Wednesday the 18th, she would be there killing the next batch of kids.
I didn't even put that together. I was trying to figure out why Tuesday the 17th. I can't believe I didn't figure that out.
Yeah.
That's a clever title.
13, 14, 15. Yeah.
Why should I film you?
The sick thing that happened to Emily when she was younger. Quite a title.
I'm glad we didn't have a title card for that one.
This one was interesting because this one was filmed through video chat. So that was our found footage, was like what we're doing.
Oh no! Who's that behind you?
I've got this lump in my arm, Jeremy. I'm not sure what to do. I'm going to try to.
Can I dig it out?
Try to dig it out with a knife real quick. Yeah.
Brian, can you show me your tits real quick?
Yeah, there's.
What do you think?
Questionable shit. But yeah, this is two people. Is he a doctor? Oh, an aspiring doctor. He's like a medical student, and she's also a student. But they're boyfriend and girlfriend that don't live together.
That's what he says. Yeah, they're in a long distance relationship.
Yes.
But it turns out everything he says is not the truth.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, because she was in wherever, Arizona,
sure.
and he was in Michigan or something.
Yeah.
That's what he kept saying. But it turns out, no, he was just outside.
Yeah, he was like in the next room.
In the next room.
Screw it, I'm going to walk.
And
no more beaming, Yeah,
exactly. Tired of the beaming.
At the end, when he came in out of nowhere, I'm like, he's just like President Scrooge walking in from the other room.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so he'd been like kind of gaslighting her the whole time and doing this thing, but it was like in order to have the alien hatch out of her back. Is that the idea?
Yeah, we should probably back up a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Go
but these two folks are talking, and they're in a relationship. This girl is convinced that her house is haunted. She sees this little kid running around, this entity that's like creeping her out, and she also has this lump like in her arm or something, and she just doesn't know what this bump is, and she doesn't understand. And he's like, well, I'm a doctor. When I come out there and visit you next time, I'll check it out. I'll make sure you're okay. And she keeps seeing these like entities running around the house, and she's actually on these video calls with her boyfriend trying to prove that this thing is real. So she's walking into her room with the laptop and making sure he can see.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there's another kid in there.
And she'd always try to call him when
she tried to bait it out.
I'm gonna call you as soon as this happens or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She was trying to bait the entity to come out, but then there were two of them that showed up. But when the rug is pulled out from under it, you find out that this doctor is working not with two ghosts, but two alien kids. They look like little children that are impregnating this girl over and over again with embryos, and he's going in and helping them remove these embryos.
Right.
But then you find out that this guy's not just doing it with this girl. He starts another phone conversation after he gets off the phone with her, after he convinces her that she's crazy, right? That thinking that all this shit's going on, and the doctor says I'm schizoaffective or whatever. Then he goes right into another video phone call with another girl doing the same exact shtick.
Telehealth medicine boyfriend experience with
I'm never calling Teledoc again, ever. Yeah. Teledoc is never going to be called by me, ever.
Listen, the Teledoc only wants to pull a alien embryo out of your spine. So keep that in mind.
I like this one from a story standpoint, and I thought it was effective how they shot it and everything. I just didn't really care for what the ghosts look like. I didn't understand the choice of the aliens themselves. They look like a little boy and a little girl for some reason. I just didn't pick up on that or attach myself to that.
They weren't ghosts. They were the lie was that they were ghosts, but they were actually aliens. And so it was a little convoluted. It was definitely well wrought in the sense that what this guy's crazy plan was, became clear.
But we don't know why he started that either, which was interesting. Like,
Yeah.
how did he get roped into this business with these things? Like,
Right.
what did he do to deserve this?
Yeah. Does he have to, like, go and pick up the women and then, bring them in as bait to these things?
This is why I like this one, because I thought about it a lot afterward. And I was like, wow, what the hell really happened there? Because was this guy just a pawn for these aliens?
Right. Like what's happening in between, hitting record. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I think, as a horror movie and something that sticks with you, it was great. I think as, I don't know, just an experience, it was rough because it was just so undynamic with just how the thing was, stuck with the laptop and whatever else.
Right.
If it had, and I think if it had maybe been the first one, it could have started you off a little better, or maybe, what it was for me was like that it was becoming almost near the end. It was like, geez, this is a real, rock at the very end here. You know what I mean? Like, pacing wise and everything else. Maybe like, it should have gone, after the Succubus one, but before the Ty West honeymoon, just because like the slamming the brakes on the sort of pace of how these things have been going.
Right. Everything
really,
else was
really,
super frenetic.
Yeah. I mean, and it could have been a good palate cleanser on the frenetic thing, but it was like, because it was so close to the end, it was like, I think we're almost done. Oh geez, this one's starting to drag.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Don't remember it that way because it ended so strongly. It got you to this place that was like satisfying. It was just it pace wise like was not rushing. It was dragging.
You know me. I mean, any alien story is great, and
I know.
Teasing
I was
me
thinking you might like this one.
that they're ghosts all the time, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, these are. I'm like, okay, I'm in, but the visual didn't really strike me as something interesting to me, but I thought that story was great.
Come out, dude. It's gonna be an awesome party. Or not. Happy Halloween!
Now moving on to the Radio Silence directed episode, the people that did Scream 5 Cream, we called it Scream 5, and Scream 6, 10/31/98. This is a straight up haunted house and witches episode.
Yeah. Well, this one works so well as like the
ender.
I don't know what the more innocent version of Amateur Night, where it was like these guys are going off to a Halloween party at
looking to
someone's
party
house,
in their costumes.
Looking to party, but not looking to film sex without permission to then upload.
I think they're just looking to get fucked up, right?
They're just looking to have a good time.
Yeah.
When they get to the house, it's like, oh, where the hell's the party? And it's
I think they went to the
quiet
wrong
there.
place.
Yeah.
They ended up in the same neighborhood as Satanic Panic.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is like, they get there, things are weird. It's taking them a while to kind of like get through the little house of horrors there, and then they get to the attic and find these hillbillies like kind of cursing and yelling at this young woman.
Looks like they were trying to perform an exorcism, is what I got out of that one.
Well, I thought the exorcism was going to be more like the Wicker Man, where they're going to try to kill her, and that was going to be the exorcism part of it. It seemed like that was where they were going with that one, but who knows? But anyhow, they intervene on that one, and it turns out in this case maybe the Sawyer family was right to be terrorizing this girl because,
exactly.
She was a demon or something.
I liked that little misdirection there, because these guys think that they're in a house and this is Halloween, so all of a sudden the house starts showing off all these poltergeist activity and the house starts shaking and whatever, and they're like, this is pretty interesting, this is cool, there's some doors opening. He's like, it's a pretty neat setup. Then they find the hillbillies who are performing an exorcism, when really what we find out is they were trying to stop this witch from taking over, and they probably should have let them, but the guys like jump in.
Cast him down! Cast him down! Cast him down! just here for the party.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought this was part of the parlor games we're playing.
Exactly, and then so these guys like stop this entire ritual. So all of a sudden, this witch or demon woman, whatever, she can get free and then fucks up that room. I mean, there are some really cool effects in this one. The guy's getting snatched up into the ceiling and like disappearing into nothing.
Yeah.
Great stuff with the doors opening and the closets and the windows and everything in the house. It really had this like big mechanical feel, and there was like arms coming out of the walls, and there was some weird shit happening. It was just all over. Until we get to the end, where it's basically the boys try to get into a car.
What the fuck was that back there, dude? Keep her away! Keep her away! What the fuck? Where'd she go? What the fuck?
Then it turns out Dr. Terror's House of Horrors train comes and runs.
I love that came back around when I was watching these. I'm like, okay, perfect. So that train goes all the way through, and then all Donald Sutherland's on that train heading out. Yeah,
and, I mean this one worked pretty well. I think it just ends with them getting hit. I mean, obviously, right? Because then the tape cuts out, and then we're back to the spine. And it's like some of the buddies had been picked off earlier. Oh, no.
We are not back to the spine after this one. The movie ends.
Oh.
And we see clips of tape 56, but nothing like to finish things off. Like, if you remember, it kind of ends abruptly.
Thinking. Yeah, I was about to ask you, like, what the hell was the ending? I don't remember what it was, because it was like, we go back, we definitely go back to the 56, but it's like
before 10/31/98.
I don't remember what happened. Yeah.
So we go back to that, and that dead body that's behind the one guy has disappeared. There's only one guy left in the building because there's little creepy children or something running around, or figures running around that people keep getting like pulled into different directions, and everyone's getting killed off. These three guys or whatever they're the criminals. Yeah. Then the last guy that's watching the movie all of a sudden gets attacked by the dead guy that was behind him, who's now the Walking Dead guy. So yeah,
right.
And then we go into the last episode,
and then the camera like rolls down the stairs, right?
It falls and gives it the old Blair Witch move. But
I know, they're trying to do it, but it's just.
I'm glad you're a fan of Blair Witch. I didn't know if you'd be a fan of that movie, but I was
not quite as effective as the guy standing next against
fuck.
the wall or whatever.
People were like, "What the hell was that?" I'm like, "Did you not listen to the dialogue earlier in the movie when they said that they would lead the kids down there? It was so scary." Right. Anyway,
yeah.
Class is dismissed. Class is dismissed.
Wait, we did it. We got through them all. Only an hour and 40 minutes or
We
so.
did it.
That's not too bad. I think we've gone 2 hours on anthologies before.
Yeah.
Jeremy, yet again, we get through anthology horror. I am, even though there were some missteps here and there, again, pleased to watch all of these films. Dr. Terror is kind of a nice little, silly romp of horror, and definitely the rough draft for what would become things like Tales from the Crypt next.
Right.
Trilogy of Terror, classic Karen Black with the most iconic horror image probably ever
of the
ending there. And then VHS, which has spawned several sequels at this point.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
Haven't they? They're up to like 5 or something now. Or,
yeah, and the new one just came out like a month or two ago, depending on when you're listening to this, obviously, but in 2023.
Wow. Yeah. It was. You're right. 5 sequels, so 6 in total. Wow, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the question is like, okay, for this one to spawn so many sequels, I mean, like what was the thing that did that? And I think it was the strength of the segments. I mean, like the spine wasn't it.
Yeah.
You tolerated the spine to get to the other segments. Really, is what it is on this one.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the later ones, it becomes where the spine makes more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that disappointed me about that film. But and the spine I think is so important when they have it in those movies. I know Trilogy of Terror was a little different for us actually, with no through line or no spine or bookends or anything. Like Creepshow, like those kinds of classics. Let's do your rating. What was your 1, 2, 3 on this one?
I don't know, man. I have to say, like, VHS was very disturbing in a lot of ways, and it definitely left me feeling uncomfortable
Oh, yeah.
And like kind of like, like nauseous or whatever.
Yeah, yucky.
So I don't know. It is definitely, in terms of like which one's the scariest or the most effective, it's probably that one.
Wow.
But I think, the one I enjoyed the most was probably Dr. Terror.
For sure.
It was
my number one.
So, I mean, it was, it was silly in a lot of ways, but I liked the horror. It was a lot of fun. But I'd probably go Dr. Terror, Trilogy of Terror, and VHS.
We were in full agreement on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. As 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the Trilogy of Terror was great, but I thought that the first episode and the last one were just excellent. The last one was excellent, I should say. The first and the second one were just okay. They were good, but the last one really drives it home.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, that was a lot of fun, and since, Shocktoberfest led right into, I called it Sleezember. I'm going to try that one out. Why not head right into some Christmas noir, and that sounds like a really good idea. Yeah. We're doing Roadblock from 1951, Blast of Silence from 1961, and The Silent Partner from 1978. Sounds like an interesting block. I have known nothing about them again, so I'm very excited to be amazed.
Yeah. I'm excited too. I've seen The Silent Partner, and I was originally sort of pitching it to be a part of our Toronto block, but our guest at that time, Jesse Hawken, was like, let's do this other thing instead. So since there was a Christmas theme to that one, why not plug it here into our Christmas Noir Part 2 block? And then the other two, Roadblock and Blast of Silence, are recommendations from Alex Vlahov, the curator of Only Film Noir, and I think one of them he might have plugged 3 years ago, whenever we did the first Christmas Noir. So looking forward to those.
Hell yeah. All right, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next time.
Ciao.
We've reached the end of our journey. No accidents. So much for Dr. Terror.